not have any more technical difficulties today.
Oh, that's all right. Oh, we're on. Hey, y'all.
Oh, yeah, we are here.
Oh, we're stuck, though.
Uh-oh.
Are we frozen?
Yes. Oh, not anymore. Wait.
Hello, everybody.
We're behind.
Oh, is that why I can't see it?
There's a delay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure
Well,
is.
good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to the Sunday edition of Let's Unpack, where today we're going to be discussing sitting in the funk. And to my immediate left is Ms. Danica Leonard, and I will let her introduce herself to the topic, but she is a licensed social worker. You have your master's in social work as well? No, not yet?
Mm-mm.
She's going to get her master's in social work. Maybe. I'm not going to put that on her. But the incredible Danica Leonard, and then also my co-host, Ms. Nita Kellogg. And I will give Ms. Danica Leonard a moment to introduce yourself and your relation to the topic.
Hey, everybody. I am Danica Leonard, and I am a licensed social worker. And I have been working in the community for the better part of a decade, doing many different facets of what social work is, whether it's human services or mental health services or family support services. So actually, I'm not going to school for my license in social work. I'm going to school for my master's in public affairs at the Humphrey at the U.
Nice.
So it's a different direction, but to support the same kind of work.
Awesome. Are you able to see us? Yeah, so we're on there. I don't know what's going on. So thank you guys for tuning in with us today. Again, the topic today is sitting in the funk. And if you guys were able to take a look at our previous video we put up yesterday, there's a few folks I ran around town and asked how that resonated with them, sitting in the funk. So today we'll start with a couple of questions, and you guys know that I like this to be a conversation more than an interview. But when you're sitting in the funk, same question I asked some of those individuals, how does that resonate with you?
I think that it took me a long time to be okay with knowing that I was in a funk, or that it was perfectly normal to sit in a funk. Because the expectations that you just have, like culturally and professionally, you have to always be on, be ready,
Right.
be 100%, and so it took me a while to even acknowledge, like, there is such a thing as being in a funk. So I would say that would be something that it was really important for me to just say, listen, something's not right, and to name it.
That is important, to be able to label how you're feeling and to do it for yourself, not allow somebody that power over you to label it, because then we come up with things like misdiagnosis and transference. A lot of folks like to use that word as well, so I agree, that's very important. How does that resonate with you when you hear sitting in the funk?
For me it's, I think I often say owning your own stuff. Like a lot of times, so y'all know I work with girls, so a lot of my stuff is around connecting with the girls and making sure that they, as they're talking through different things, that they're owning their part of it. And so I think for me personally, it's something that I've been working on probably like for the last year and a half, really strongly, is what is it that I am frustrated about, or what is it that is happening to me that I'm not understanding, and am I just going through my day without acknowledging it, like by masking it, or am I really sitting with how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling this way, defining it, and then deciding what am I going to do with it? Like, how am I going to move through it? So sitting in it is giving, to me, it's giving me myself that time to deal with my emotions.
Yes, labeling, dealing with your emotions. Yeah, you can't deal with them until you label them, but once you label them, then what are they? And then, so you guys know I have to say that attacks your belief systems, right? So in order to have all those things transpire, something in your belief needs to be checked. I'm not saying it needs to be
Definitely.
changed.
Definitely.
That's something for you to decide, but you need to check in. And I shared with some my class earlier this week in checking your belief systems. For the example I gave them was my mother used to tell me all the time when I was a little girl, those white people don't care nothing about you. And for many years, that the impact that had on many relationships, teachers and school bus drivers, police officers. And my mother was what she was saying was, I need you to be attuned with yourself so that you know how to navigate. It wasn't that every white person was going to be not good for me, but you need to recognize when anybody is not going to be good for you. So and what that felt like in those moments and sitting in those funky places, like my teacher doesn't like me, or gosh, she's going to take the long way home, so I can't get home on time. I'm going to tell my mom this and that, like the discomfort that it adds to those type of and strain on those type of relationships.
Oh, and with the uncomfort comes the stress levels. It comes the tenseness in your body. You know, like I sometimes I find myself just being tense while driving, and then I'll catch myself like, why am I so tense? You know, let me relax. But you know, it's that back of the mind still going over all of these things that you're not sitting and taking time to deal with. So when you sit and take time, man, it just gives you a minute to breathe through the craziness. To get onto the other side.
For sure. I'm still concerned with this video, but we're gonna move on. So describe how sitting in the funk looks and feels to you.
Ooh. So I was thinking about when was the last time when I was thinking the first time that I realized that I was in a funk and that there was not a lot of support to help acknowledge it. I was pretty young, and it was around the time that I had a grandparent pass away, and it was in 6th grade, and it was already at a time where I went to an all-white school, and any extra lens or like any extra attention I wanted to avoid. One, because I was black, and two, because we had some drama at home. Like my mom had just lost her mom. And so she's grieving, and I still had to go to school and pretend like everything was okay. And so, in pretending like everything was okay, my teachers treated me as if everything was normal. And sometimes even were a little bit harder on me, because they were like, well, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And I was like, this cannot make it home. Like you were talking about too, like this cannot make it home to my mom. This is one more thing for her to have to deal with. And so I just remember not knowing what was going on, not knowing that I was in a funk, not in a daze, until way later in life, when I was just like, that was a really, really hard time for me. And to not to have the space to have those words, or just the feelings, or even to name and describe it, because it was like, keep it pushing, just keep it pushing, keep it pushing. And so I would say I had to, in the work that I had been doing, I had to learn a lot about being present and mindfulness, and acknowledging, like you were saying this, but acknowledging how you feel. And I felt like I got really good at acknowledging how I felt, or acknowledging that there were feelings that needed to be felt. I got stuck as a person about, like, so then when I have them, what do I do with them? Do I share them with other people? Is it safe to do that? Is this like the whole thing around intimacy, and this being like something that you are a part of you that you have always had to shield for whatever reasons? I mean, self-preservation or fear, whatever, but that like you don't want to share with somebody because they're always used to seeing you a certain way.
Girl, yes.
And being vulnerable enough to talk about it with people, and being like, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. This is how I'm dealing with something, or this is what's happening with me. Because sometimes talking about it or being open with you, that vulnerability, not everybody is not everybody is there for you to be vulnerable with, and not everybody is safe. So I think, and I take that very seriously about people being vulnerable with me, because I wanted to be a safe place, because I know that a lot of my life was spent on like feeling safe enough to be vulnerable to talk about, like when I'm in a funk. So,
but then I think that is so good that you said that, because think about it, like how many people do we really feel vulnerable around? And I'm not saying we're supposed to, but you would think that there would be more of a village than there really is, or more of a support system than there really is, because there's a lot of us out here saying that, like we're friends, or we're really good, or calling each other sisters, but there's that foolery that still kind of go in with really being able to show up authentically you. So it is challenging to figure out. It's sort of like you have to really go on a journey to really put yourself around like-minded people, but being honest with yourself, and then being able to be honest in that space really gives a foundation to me. And if more people can come to spaces like that, like being their authentic self, then there will be a lot more vulnerability going on.
Yeah. When we were younger, you used to, if nothing else, your block in Omaha, we're all from Omaha.
Yes, we're from Omaha.
The blocks are extremely long. It's what it feels like anyway. And so I remember Benny Street was our block, from the top of Benny Street to the bottom of Benny Street, which became Bedford Street. That was a community, and and the kids didn't always look like me, but there was one candy lady. We had a police officer on the block, and there were some cousins on the block. My mom's best friend ended up living at the end of the block. So it was like people took care of one another. And so if I were at my mom's, Miss Mary's house, hi Miss Mary, Miss Mary's house, Miss Mary would cater to me as if my mother were sitting there. Now, she's not going to act as though she's my mother, but she's going to give me some support and going back and talking to my mother about whatever might have been going on. We don't have that. We're scared to knock on each other's door. We don't even ask people for sugar.
That is funny, because we lived off of 44th and Bedford. My grandmother did, so I grew up around there, and it was like the candy store on the corner, and the greenhouse, and that's I think where the basis of Project Diva comes from. Like that whole village concept literally is like, that's how we grew up. And you hear about a lot of people saying that you got in trouble with the neighbor down the street because everybody's like that, but it literally was like that with us growing up.
By the time I get back to the top of the hill, depending on what I did at the bottom of the hill, it was already at the top of the hill by the time I got there.
And that feeling has always been such a place of peace for me. Like being able to do that, or be around others who grasp that, really is a space of peace.
And that's where we'd be able to unpack some of those things as a community. But right now we have to kind of start in our homes, right? We have to get the courage enough to just unpack with your kids. That if you could do that, then we can start as a community being able to unpack with our neighbors and the people on the next block and the next block. But we're afraid to have authentic conversations with our own children just around bills. I can have a conversation with my daughter today who wants a new car. She wants a car. She's going to turn 16. She should have a car. I totally agree. But we have to talk about how to make that work. We can't just pop up and go, hey, let's go to the car lot and get a car. That's not the way that works either, because I am going to be the one making that car note, not her. So we don't have authentic conversations, so she understands that I don't have $20,000 in the bank,
or that this is even the process. This is what credit does. This is how I need to get you prepared to be able to purchase a vehicle.
So you skip the financial funks of life, right? Then that's what we're supposed to give to our kids, and we're somehow in this newer generation we're missing that. That information is not being, now they're getting the cool stuff. They like the sneakers we want to talk about wearing, and the jeans we want to talk about wearing. But we're not talking home ownership and tangible opportunities to these kids that are going to be sustainable. So thus we have an issue with sitting in the funk. Our whole community is in a funk, and it's generally because we're broke. We're broke.
We have no access.
Right. So now how do we go find the way? How do we go make the path? We got to stop waiting on folks to come make it for us. So let's get talking to each other and figuring out. And that's the whole premise of this show. Let's get these conversations going.
So for all of you out there, this show is called Let's Unpack. And it really, I'm Nita Kellogg. I am the co-host of Jatan White. And today we have as a guest
Danica Leonard. Hey, y'all.
And so we are so glad that you guys are here with us having these conversations, because we have to start it somewhere, right? We've got to start somewhere. And so today our topic is
sitting in the funk.
Sitting in the funk.
So the next couple of questions are going to be good. We're going to get deep just a little bit.
All right.
Is sitting in the funk natural? Is it normal? is there a time limit on it? And I am just intrigued to let you answer this question.
I'm going to find out too.
How much time we got? So, I think that when we talk about normalcy, I am a person that I tend to normalize a lot, because a lot of people do not know, because they're not connecting and talking with each other, that we are all going through very similar things. And it's about, the first thing was about being vulnerable enough to share it, and then getting over the fear that you are putting burdens on other people. I know a lot of times we're just like, I don't want to bother nobody with this, or this just seems like I'm just always going through something. And so I could understand why people have reservations about just about being able to share what they're dealing with or what they're going through. It is absolutely, unequivocally normal. It's supposed to happen. Sometimes the breakthroughs, most of the time actually, the breakthroughs happen when you are in a funk, because you are so uncomfortable. You got to get out of it. Yeah. You got to figure something out, and you do certain things that are uncomfortable, optimistically, where you are reaching out for help, or you're asking, or you're venting, or you are trying to think something through so that you can get to the other side. So I think it's absolutely normal, and it's absolutely normal to stay or be like, name that you're in a funk, talk about how it's impacting you. I think it's important when you are in a funk to tell people who care about you what's going on, because most of us do not want to impact anybody negatively because of our own stuff. Yeah. And I'm just thinking about this personally. That's one of my biggest concerns about engaging with people on certain levels, is that, like, I don't want to negatively impact people, or impact the work that I'm doing or relationships because of what I got going on. Yeah. So
that's real.
You may not see me for a while because I'm like, I'm not really in a good place, or I can't figure this out, and I don't want to keep going around and around and around. I would say that when it's not normal, or when you should probably start getting some help, is when it's impacting your daily life. If you can't go to work, if you're not feeling it, if you snapping off at people that you love and care about, or shoot, even just people in general, complete strangers, and that's not normally who you are, that's probably when you should probably get some support.
I like that. That's good. Thank you for saying that. That's good.
So let's talk about some real support. Let's talk about, like, what could that look like? Because I think these conversations are being had, but what is it going to take for us to really begin to move towards it? You know what I'm saying? Like, as a community. So, like, when we think of support, like, how do we do it? How do you go about it?
I think the first thing, and you just said it, and I actually wrote it down just because I want to come back to it, was find a trusted person or system. And you got to get some of that out. The one thing we think we're so strong, we think we can deal with everything internally, and you can't. Your body and your mind are just not designed to work that way. And when your stress levels are at their highest, you're not making any good decisions. So what you want to do is have a trusted person. And some of us, that's our mom and our cousin or our best friend. But that person has to be in a space that they can handle what you're bringing to them, because what you don't want to do is give them your negative energy, and now they're owning it, and now it's now playing out in their environment.
How do you gauge that, though? Because that's what you just said. Right. Like,
so for me,
how do you gauge it?
For me, I have certain,
because otherwise you retreat. And you're like, well, I really don't want to burden them with that. You know what I'm saying?
And and through this week, I heard a lot of people talk about isolation and doing it on their own and being alone, and that's a typical response. That's the first thing you do is, let me get in the bed with a cover on my head. Nobody can see me. But you have to know your friends. And so I have 5 good friends, and each one of them hold a different space for me. And so depending on what's troubling me, that's the friend I go to. Now, if I know none of them can handle that, I go to my mother. Because for me, my mother is more grounded in God than anybody else I know. And so with that kind of grounding, I know she's prepared to handle her child because she knows me well. So you have to find a trusted, that's why I said a trusted person or system, because everybody doesn't have their mom, everybody doesn't have their dad, and everybody doesn't have a system, but you got to find one.
So it begins with first radical self-care for you to acknowledge that shit, I need this. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, at the end of the day, if I don't do this, then something is not going to be right for a long time. So radical self-care is going to be the first thing, right? So then when you acknowledge it and you say, I need to do something. I need somebody to talk to. I need to get some help. Then it's like, okay, now who? And so the friends
circle,
the circle.
Yeah. Now, if there's a crisis, that's different. I don't mean work your circle in a crisis by any means. There are plenty of supports for crisis and situations. So.
But when you just home and you going through it, and you know you need to figure this out, you gotta. So okay, I said radical self care because self-discovery to me is like one of the hardest things for people to acknowledge. Self-discovery means that you got to deal with something about you, and a lot of us don't like to sit in our shit.
We'll dance. I call that's the greatest dance of them all. Dance
around yourself.
You waltzing around yourself. Yeah.
So like I think like a lot of the issues is that people not taking a minute to think and be like, okay, what part am I really playing in this? When will I say enough is enough? You know? Yeah. Because we do have people around us that we know love us, 99.9% of us, right? There's somebody that you can actually turn to. But it's that self-discovery piece that, you know, a lot of us have to stop and do to be able to reach out.
I agree. I could take a responsibility for that. I'm gonna say that there's a couple big things in my life that I had to go through the motion of being like, okay, so I'm responsible for this, and if I don't figure this out, this on me.
It's on me.
It's on me. And but coming to that it took a very long time because I was like, no, you. It's all your fault. This is why I'm acting this way. It's on you. And I had to grow up about a couple of things. Like there was some harm that was done to me. However, there was also a role I played in the harm. So, and just persevering, thinking about it all, you know, think about and ruminating and being like, oh, that, you know, this is a bad entity or that person was wrong and they're always going to be wrong. And it was like, no, I definitely contributed to how all this played out and how I reacted to it and how I dealt with it. And having to acknowledge that and be like, oh, wow, that didn't hurt.
Exactly.
So I'm okay. I'm good. I'm okay. Like, okay, I admitted it. Yes. Okay. What else can I admit today? Nothing. Okay, I'm done. That was a lot. Like, I ain't admit nothing else today.
Yes, let me go to sleep.
But being honest with yourself and being like, you know what, I did have something to do. I did contribute to like how this contribute to the situation that I'm in right now.
Seriously.
And also being able to say I own my part and still hold whatever it is that is wrong.
Exactly.
And
now how do I deal with that? Now what direction do I want to take with that?
It took a lot of growth for me to be that way too, to be like, you know what, I did mess up, but that don't stop this from being messed up or being fucked up or funky.
Exactly.
Like, it does not stop it. So
I either need to go apologize, or I need to, you know, like whatever that is. Just once you do it, the hardest conversations are the ones that are never had. Once you have it, oh my God, the whole world opens up.
Yeah, for sure. That was good conversation, y'all. That was good. So I did, and just so y'all know, I did notice tones this week. A lot of folks are saying isolation, and so some of the things I left with them were just be aware, be self-aware, and then be other aware. Because as you're processing yourself, you don't want to hurt yourself, number one, or hurt anybody else in the process of trying to figure yourself out too. So be other aware, which something we teach in empowerment as well too.
I love that.
So last question. Any parting best tips, suggestions in navigating the funk that you want to leave with the folks?
Ooh,
I know. Right?
I'm the one that got to answer.
Well, we're going to all answer, but you know, you get to go first.
Any parting? Let me think.
Best tips.
Yeah. Anybody can actually jump in and go first.
I would say that there is a lot of value, and Anita, you said this earlier too, but there's a lot of value in acknowledging and taking care of yourself.
Radical self-care.
Yes, radical self-care, and knowing that being in a funk is normal, and that it is okay to be in the funk, and that stress is not necessarily is not a bad thing. I mean, that's something that they teach us in like 7th grade, where they're just like, there's good stress and there's bad stress. But no, radical self-care is a key ingredient in fighting toxic stress.
Yeah.
We are already dealing with enough in our lives and in this community, and in the work that we do and the love that we have for our community. Self-care. I just was preaching this to a group of human service workers I did not know. That was the last thing I said. I was like, self-care. Close the door. And never like, okay, lady, but self-care in acknowledging when it is hard. I think that is one of the most important things for me, is to be like, yeah, this is actually really hard. I don't know if y'all have been around this thing called Art of Hosting, and they talk about hosting yourself. And when it's hard for you, chances when you're in a group or dealing with a process or doing something, when it's hard for you, it's probably going to be hard for somebody else in the room that you're dealing with, almost that you're feeling. And I was like, oh, yeah, duh.
The art of
hosting. And I think that's it. I might have some more, but I'm going to stop.
How about you, Nina?
I think for me, in order to do that, I think one of the things that I would love to leave with people is that they take time in their day to get to themselves. I think that's like the number one thing. For me, it's early in the morning before I even, get my day started, get the phones, start answering phone calls, looking at emails, is to just take some time to just think my thoughts through, kind of rehash, like, what do I want the day to go like? Kind of start there. But I think the most important piece is that a lot of people, the world is so noisy and there's so much going on that when you don't block out the world, you end up not being able to hear yourself. And so just getting that time to yourself at some point throughout the day just to be with you.
I'm going to piggyback off of all of that. The only thing I would add is find something to celebrate with yourself every day.
Every day.
Yeah. More than one thing would be ideal, but at least one thing.
Too.
Yeah. And literally celebrate. Like, sometimes I'll make a fool out of myself.
Yes, girl. Get it.
Yeah. So that would be my parting words. Celebrate yourself. Find a trusted person so that you can be your best self every day.
Love it.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to say before we end this particular edition of Let's Unpack Sitting in the Funk?
Well, we want to thank our sponsors.
Yes. Let's thank our sponsors. Thank you, Nita. That's why Nita is the co-host. We're going to thank our sponsors, Hennepin County Library. We also want to thank Project Diva, who's always present for us. Don't forget about the Hope Foundation. And Tiffany Dykes, who is not present for us today, but Tiffany Dykes is my friend, one of our co-hosts, and an amazing grant writer for our team as well. So
loved your last parting words, Tiffany, when I watched the podcast last week. Loved it.
Missed you today.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
So see you guys on the next edition of Let's Unpack.
Which will be... Oh, we haven't decided yet.
Well, it won't be next Sunday. There'll be an impromptu video for next week, and then the week after we'll be broadcasting live. I won't give you much information on that, but it's going to be great. You do not want to miss it.
At all.
Let's unpack.